Sure.
A little better? Okay. Okay. I'm sure many of you are thinking this is a perplexing subject. It was for me too. I got my degree, my Bachelor of Science from OU in anthropology, and it wasn't about too long ago when I learned about Mormons trying to make sense of whatever was happening in the history of America into what is in their book. They go so far as doing genetic research, trying to find links between Native Americans and Mesopotamians instead of Asians, which is what we will look at. So I found it perplexing, and I haven't flexed my archaeology muscle in a while, and so I thought I'd join up, and now here I am, shaking in front of all of you. So because it is such a perplexing subject, I thought we'd first find out what is archaeology. I'm sure many of you have your notions about it, but yeah, I'm hoping you'll learn a little bit more and you'll find out the actual depth of it today. And then we'll get into Mormon stuff. What's archaeology? It's actually a subfield of anthropology, which is the general study of humans. Archaeology wouldn't make much sense if it didn't have this background along with it. We would just be looking at stuff. We would be digging up bones, bowls, broken sherds of pottery, and little tools, and we'd look, oh, these are pretty awesome. But we wouldn't know what they mean, the significance, or how they were used, and what it meant to culture. So first, let's talk about social-cultural anthropology. Whenever you think of a cultural anthropologist, maybe you think of Margaret Mead. The first cultural anthropologist is probably Malinowski. And he was the first one to step off of the armchair, get out there and actually mix amongst the natives and try and understand how they are living and what struggles they go through, what culture they create. He probably didn't do that great of a job, but he started something that's meaningful and that we use every day. You know, you don't just sit back in our office talking amongst one another. We actually get out there and validate our ideas or invalidate them. I would say a very important part about cultural anthropology is talking about how people in particular places, how they organize, govern, and create meaning. See, this is probably where you think of cultural anthropology. It's probably the philosophical branch of anthropology. They get to delve down rabbit holes and have fun that way. I was not that kind of person. I was much happier to be in archaeology and them help me, figure out what this meant. Now we'll go to biological anthropology, or probably the more veterans in anthropology call it physical anthropology. It's very medical. In fact, if you were doing genetic testing, you would be a biological anthropologist. You would be looking at bones mainly. They're the ones that contribute a lot to the idea that race means nothing. Beyond the skin, we are just bones. It's hard to typograph race and by just looking at bones because of the genetic variation between humans. So if you've ever come across race, they're a large part of that, along with cultural anthropology and how we actually look at race. How it helps archaeology, when we dig up bones, we're able to, if it's well preserved, we can look at the actual human, and you can see possibly a shortage, a drought. We can see where the bones were affected by stress by the humans. So that informs the archaeological dig, exactly what happened there. But that's just an example. Linguistic anthropology, probably the hardest subject for me, for sure. I never learned another language. It's not real important, but once you're in one particular frame, it's just, if you don't do, a lot of it is form and function in language, And it just wasn't my thing. It was pretty boring. I'm sure if you get to go out and learn 20 languages, that's pretty interesting. But doing things like Chomsky just did not give me a thrill at all. And I threw up a bunch of words up there. These are all definitions, I forgot to mention, these are all definitions of the American Anthropological Association. The reason why these definitions are so dense, this is actually truncated. These definitions are longer for each one of these subfields. Anthropology has a long history of making mistakes and shoring up those mistakes. So that's why these are so incredibly dense. And so if you actually study the history of anthropology, you'd understand why there is so much into each subfield and why they feel like they need to explain exactly what they do, how they work them, and why they are important. And lastly, it's archaeology. And archaeology is mainly just the study of humans from our deepest past to our present. So many people just like doing present things that are not Indians, or maybe just when the Spaniards first came to America and then on. And many people, like myself, like to do prehistoric archaeology and find out exactly how America was peopled, how they got here, exactly when they got here. That's still being fleshed out. I mean, it may be settled, but we find certain facts that open the door for more interpretations, and I find that fascinating. I like Indians, like Native Americans. Don't really care for European invasions. It's not my thing. Although my first dig was in western North Carolina, and it was when the Spaniards came in contact with Choctaw Indians, and it was great. Having a European invasion right now. And what I wanted to say is that the reason why we're going through all these subfields of anthropology is that archaeology is a comparative study. It's taking all of these facts and auditing them and helping them form an opinion of a dig site. So, continue. What is archaeology? Like I said, archaeology, it's a flexible science. It is a science, it's social science, but it makes use of all types of physical sciences that you would, like chemistry. We use chemistry to date our dig sites. We use, like I said, biological anthropology, medical anthropology to figure out what's exactly happening, what's happening to the people on those dig sites. And we use socioeconomics to figure out what kind of trade is happening in this area. Where is the cultural reach between two different civilizations? How closely do they resemble one another? And what kind of conflicts they had? And the last thing about archaeology that I do enjoy is that in the summertime you get to actually get out there and sweat and be a part of what you're studying. So much of archaeology is picking up a book, and all it is dates and maps, and it can get a little oppressing. And then when you get out there, you realize exactly why you do this and why they spend so much time on dates. It helps figure out a concrete opinion of what you're looking at. Why is archaeology, anthropology important? Again, this is from the American Anthropological Association. I want to tell you that anthropology has a checkered history. We did human tests that were inappropriate, to say the least, and those are the types of things that we have to reckon with, and especially through the laws that were enacted. But also, we have to make sure that who we are studying feels respected, or else it's not going to work. We're not going to be able to get what we want if they don't feel respected. That's a large part of archaeology. When you're working with a current Native American and their past, working with their ancestors, you have to be respectful, you have to work with them, and they will help you get information from that. But if you don't, well then you're screwed, and you're being a jackass. So we're not going to do that. So that's what helps validate archaeology. What's most important about archaeology is following the facts. You need to believe what you are seeing and create an opinion off of those. You can't come into a dig site having an opinion and trying to force it into that opinion. You can have an opinion of what you thought and then reassess after looking at the facts, but you can't do what Mormon archaeologists do. They go in there with a narrative and they want to find things that validate their book. And that's not science and that's not archaeology. Claims and beliefs. Mormons believe a lot of things, but I think I'll let Matt Stone and Trey Parker explain a few of their beliefs. They did it a little better than I would. This is from their Broadway smash, the Book of Mormon. This is called I Believe.